Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. As you may have gathered from the title, today's podcast is all about cake. I don't know anyone who doesn't love a slice of cake, and I don't know anyone who makes cakes as incredible as Fiona from Fifi's Cakery. So today we talk to Fi all about her creative process, how she makes cakes that look amazing and taste amazing in equal measures, and how she works with couples to create designs that are really unique and bespoke to who they are. We talk a little bit more about the creative process of wedding suppliers in general and how we balance being creative with incorporating your wishes and your designs for your own unique wedding. And we suggest some little tips that you can do to get the most out of your wedding suppliers. So things you can do to help us help you have an amazing wedding. It's always a little bit strange chatting to somebody you know so well, but I really enjoyed recording this episode with a hugely talented friend of mine, and I really hope you enjoy listening to Fiona talk about the magic she puts into her wonderful creations. Enjoy. Hello, Fi.
Hello.
It's a bit weird, this, isn't it?
Very.
Welcome to the podcast and welcome to my lovely new office. You're
Thank
the first one
you.
in here, so that's a privilege.
Yeah.
You can say something complimentary about it
It
if you
is
like.
beautiful, totally transformed. You're very clever.
Thank you. So I know who you are very well. I know all your secrets and everything there is to know.
Don't tell.
But other people listening don't, so tell everyone who you are and what you do.
I am Fifi from Fifi's Cakery, and I make wedding cakes. Deliciously fluffy, tasty cakes that also look pretty good as well.
More than pretty good. They look amazing and they
Oh,
taste
thank
amazing.
you.
And that's what I think makes you a bit different, is that there's loads of cakes out there that look good and then you bite into them and they're a bit dry or crumbly.
It tends to be a big disappointment. I'm always first in the queue for cake at any event, and then I bite into it and think, oh, why did I bother?
Yeah.
But they look gorgeous, but if they don't taste good, there's no point to cake. So it's really got to be the best tasting cake you can find.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is. Yours are great, and you do gluten-free and all sorts of...
Gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, basically cake-free cake is an option.
Still tastes amazing.
Yeah, and it does.
Yeah.
And people don't even know that there's...
Yeah, no calories, no guilt.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
So how did you get started? What was it about cake making that attracted you to it?
It was my nanny. She taught me how to bake. My nan was a baker, my granddad was an artist, and he used to sketch out designs and my nan would transform it into icing, and she taught me to bake when I was a teenager, and I just seem to have continued where they left off, and I just always made family cakes, and then when my children were born, their cakes every year became more and more wild and wonderful, and then all my friends would say, can you make my child's cake as well please, and it just snowballed. And then thankfully I managed to step away from novelty cakes and do my real passion, which is all things beautiful and wedding like. So I only do wedding cakes now because that's what makes me sing when I bake. And they make me so happy that it's never a day's work. It's always just pure joy, making someone's dream come true in cake form.
Oh, and what also is really lovely about you is your consultation process and the effort you go to all those newly engaged couples that are just trying to find their right supplier, and I think what you offer in terms of just that hour they get to spend with you.
Well, I like to meet them because there's a bit of each couple in their cake, and if I spend some time with them, we have teas and coffees and champagne and lots of different flavours of cake to try, and then I can just pull out the things that they really love and their passions and just get a sense of their personality, and then that all gets written down in the notes and a sketch comes together with all their ideas, and then when I'm making the cake I know basically what I can add to the cake because I know that they're going to love this.
Yeah.
And there's little elements of that couple in their cake. So meeting them face to face for me is really essential, because then their heart and soul is in their cake.
Absolutely, and that really comes across in your designs. But I think that's true, and that was something that we were going to talk about today anyway, was a lot of wedding suppliers are obviously creative and are designing things for couples. So that kind of balance of meeting the couple and getting to know them and doing the designs that they want or the photos that they want, but still keeping your sense of creativity, which can be tricky, can't it?
Yeah.
But I do agree that you have to meet in person if you can, or at the very least via Skype or FaceTime or something, because you need to get to know each other and get a real sense of who they are and what you're about to see if you work together, don't you?
Yeah, because it's not a guarantee that it's going to be a perfect fit. I've had couples come to me and they've been fabulous and we've got lots of ideas together, and then I had one couple ask if I could cover the cake in royal icing, which I don't know if you know, it's sets rock hard. It's what we used to have in the 70s, and you used to crack a tooth on it, and I like teeth too much, so I wouldn't want to inflict that on anyone, so I did have to say, I'm really sorry, but that's not an icing that I can offer you because my insurance won't cover it. But they was really had their heart set on it, so we parted ways, and I can't wait to hear about their wedding because we were still in contact, but I know that I wasn't their cake
wasn't
maker,
the right one,
so.
And I think that's a sign of a really good supplier, and I remember putting that in my book, because you can't cater to everyone. You have to be true to your style and what you're good at. I had a client or a prospective client say, I really like those black and white photos with like a bit of colour, and I kind of cringed internally, and I was like, that's not really what I do, that's not what you're gonna get from me. And again, it didn't work out, and there was no bad feeling, but there's no point trying to do something that you're not comfortable with, because we're not going to do it to the best of our ability if our heart's not in it, and then the couple aren't going to be pleased with it, and it's just not going to work. So I think sometimes, although they were probably disappointed when you couldn't do what they wanted, hopefully they've realised that it's worked out for the best,
because they shouldn't have to compromise their ideas either.
Exactly.
So if it's not working with one supplier, there'll be another supplier that can bring their dreams to life perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you do have that kind of basic fit and your ideas match, there still must be a little bit of getting it right mix between their ideas and what they want and your creativity and your kind of knowledge of what will work and what won't work. How is that process? Do you sort of sketch a design and send it to them, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion face to face, and that's where the majority of the design comes together. And then we each have a think and come back on email and what about this, or I've seen this, and then I put a sketch together, and that's when you can really start to see the elements and see how they're balanced out and if they're going to work together. And then if there's anything that they're not keen on the sketch, then I can adjust it. And then eventually it just will come together, and this is what's exciting about cake. You don't actually know until it's there in front of you. Sometimes I've quoted for 3 roses on top, and then the cake in its 3D form reveals itself, and I think, no, that needs 5 roses, and I add 2 more because it's what's going to make the cake really come alive. Regardless of what I quoted for and what the couple have paid for, that cake needs to look its very best. So you don't know that until it's there, really. So a lot of it is just sort of waiting and seeing the personality of the cake come alive. Yeah,
I think there has to be a certain amount of skill in that. I think some people who are really good at what they do, no disrespect, they wouldn't have that flexibility in mind. It's a bit like with photography. Sometimes, I stay a bit longer because loads of people are on the dance floor, or they're in a certain outfit, and I'm like, well, that's going to look really good against that background. We weren't going to use it, but actually, let's do that. Or the light's doing something amazing. Let's come out again after you've had your first dance and do something in the evening. So I think that's a good question to sort of ask a supplier, isn't it? Is sort of how flexible you are within the range of what you do.
Yeah, and we're all creatives. It's very difficult to have a creative that is rigid and stuck to a process. We are very flexible because things just appear and you have to run with it sometimes.
Yeah, and you learn to embrace that and enjoy that. I think when I started photography, I had such set ideas, not so much when I did the wedding photography, but when I was just learning and studying, and for my portfolio, I had such set ideas that if the photo didn't turn out exactly how I wanted, I'd be disappointed. And then I'd come back and be like, actually, that's better. Actually, I really like that photo. And once I had a bit more flexibility and like, you know, plan and put ideas in, but actually just go with what feels right and what looks better. And you can surprise yourself. That's the nice thing, not just the couple, but you're like, wow, I've created something really different here.
And then the couple have got something totally unique. It's not just a format where you're churning out exactly
the
same
thing. Exactly. That's what I don't like seeing suppliers where it's evident they are just churning something out. I mean, I had a photographer tell me, if you've not been to the venue before, go there and then look at a sample album and then see what another photographer's done in the different locations. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be like, okay, well, I'll get them kissing under the tree like they did, and then I'll get them holding hands, you know, by the canal. And it's like, well, no, I don't. I'll go and have a look round and we'll decide with the couple what we want to do and where. And even if I've been to a venue once before, I certainly don't do it as a kind of, right, now this shot, now that shot, because that's not fair on anyone.
No. And you're capturing somebody's personal day. You're not just on a conveyor belt of photos.
No. And that's why I think it's really important that you sort of get to know the couples and get to make them feel comfortable. I think that's important, because once people are at ease, you can see, you know, when I have consultations, and definitely, you know, it must be with yours, once they've eaten a bit of cake and had a drink, they feel more comfortable, so their personality comes through, and then they feel that they sort of open up a bit more and they tell you a bit more, or they start joking, or, you know, winding each other up in a playful way, and then it really comes out, doesn't it? But I think it's our responsibility as suppliers to bring that out in people and let people be themselves. That's really important, isn't it?
And I think it's really important to tell couples that there are no rules. I think people are worried that, do you do this at a wedding? It's like, it doesn't matter. What do you want to do? It's your wedding.
I hate all those must-have lists. Yeah. Like the must-have photos you have to have, and you just think, no, you don't. No. You don't have to do anything. No. And so that, and I love the response when couples realise that how little limits there are, actually.
Can just run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or ones that come to you and like, we're doing it really differently, we don't care, and you're like, brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. I've just set up a wedding cake this morning, and it was a complete family orientated cake. So we had fairies on there for their little girl, we had magic mushrooms from Mario Kart for their little boy, and then we had Stickman as well for their youngest. And it was just, and there were bumblebees buzzing around all the flowers, because the groom's granddad was a beekeeper. Wow. And he's no longer with them, and he was a part of the cake, and it was just the most bonkers cake but so beautiful, because it just was the entire family all together on this edible piece of art. And it's just those cakes that make you sing, because they're so personal. I'm never going to get a cake like that.
No,
that's exactly the same ever again. And they're not going to see their wedding cake on someone else's album, because it was purely made for them, with all the love and reasoning behind it that's unique to them and their family. And you know, if you'd gone down the wedding cake rules route, you'd have never come to that point.
That's it. And that's it. A lot of people probably don't realise how much you can do with a wedding cake. They probably think, you know, there's a choice of about 5 flavours, how many tiers, you know, whether you want flowers on it or not. But yeah, they're endless possibilities. Yeah.
I mean, even people say to me, well, we have to have the fruitcake on the bottom, don't we? And that's nonsense. Nobody needs that much fruitcake for a start on the bottom tier. Only Nan has fruitcake. You only need the top tier to keep her happy, and then that's that. But there's enough structure in properly put together cake that there is no weight on each tier. So you can have a fruitcake on top of the lightest, fluffiest sponge.
Oh, okay.
And there's structure within that prevents any downward force on any of the tiers. So even that rule that most people swear by,
and I think I put that in my book, so that was a mistake I made. But
it was
Tut
tut, Russ.
But that was just to demonstrate. I think I was making the example of sometimes a supplier will say that's not possible, not to say, oh, you can't have it because I don't do it, but just to say, logistics wise, some things don't work. So it's probably a really poor example, but I apologise for that.
I think traditionally it was the case.
Yeah.
But I think cake has just become much more advanced these days, that you're not just balancing one on top of the other and hoping that they don't collapse into each other.
Unless you're Ruby in the Bake Off. And
oh my goodness, yes.
Oh, that was such a sad
I
moment.
can't watch that. Cake Week, I can't watch it because it just upsets me so much. I want to dive in and help them.
It was Noel. I think everyone felt like Noel, who kind of wanted to hug her but was laughing
Giggling.
at the same time. It was like we all felt like that.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. But you do, almost in local circles, famous for your castle cakes as well. Tell people about it.
Yeah,
Those.
I do love making anything out of sugar, and I had a very young bride years and years ago wanted a Disney castle on top of her cake, and I'd looked around and all the options on all the cake sites were for polystyrene, and I just thought, ooh, that's really not fabulous enough for a wedding cake. So I looked into making it myself, and there's not a single bit of wire or structure in them. They're total sugar. That takes me a couple of days to make all the elements, and then when they're dry, piece them together. And each bride chooses different coloured flowers to go around it, or glitter on the turrets, or Cinderella blue for the turret. It's really, you can just go crazy with it.
They're incredible. They really stand out. Yeah.
They just, I just think it's a little pretty bit of fantasy nonsense on top of a cake that just sets it off.
But it's art as well, isn't it? And it's really sort of the finesse in it, for something so, like you say, so much structure needed and so much height and sort of volume, but you've still got that sort of finesse about it. That I think that's what wows people with them. So.
And then it's a keepsake as well, because I leave a little box so that they can transport it safely home, and then they've got it for as long as they want, really, because it's sugar, so it'll never go off. So they can keep it forevermore if they wish. Or bring it out every time they bake a cake. Ta-da! Look what I just made.
But you are, I know you, but you won't remember saying you're quite inspired by, how should I put this in a nice way? You're not on another planet, I don't mean but like whimsical and sort of magical things sort of find their way onto your cakes, don't they? Quite a lot.
I do love magic. You've got to surround yourself in magic. And if that means eating it too, then fabulous.
Yeah, ingest a bit of magic. It's your new tagline. What else? We were going to talk about something else and I can't remember what it was. Oh, okay. So we've talked about your creativity and working with creative suppliers. But regardless of who couples are dealing with and working with and looking up and reading reviews about, one of the things we've spoken about before is kind of the things that couples can do to help us help them. So I think we all do. I mean, I wrote in the book and I do this podcast, it's all tips for couples and how to find the right supplier and how to avoid stress, and every supplier does blog posts that help their couples and help them have a wonderful wedding. But I think there's a lot of responsibility that couples can take on themselves to ensure that their wedding day goes smoothly and to get the best out of their suppliers. So I thought have a little chat about some of the things that they can do to get the best from us. Is there a particular thing that you love your couples doing, or something that really sort of adds to your stress levels that could be avoided?
Communication, I think, is key. The more communication you can have with couples, the more insight you have into what they're thinking. So you can have all the ideas in the world, but you might be misinterpreting words. So images are a really clear way of going, right, yes, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
And sketches going backwards and forwards, that really, really helps. When communication becomes slightly tricky is when it's very panicked and late at night or Easter Sunday morning or phone calls, and I understand the pressure that couples are under, because there's an incredible amount to pull together on and just one day. Yeah,
and they're not event planners, is what I've said before. They don't have the experience or skills of organising loads of different suppliers, do they? So it's understandable.
And what must be really frightening for couples is that they meet somebody at a wedding fair, or they contact a website, and then they pay a deposit, and then it just disappears into the ether for maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're sat there going, gosh, I haven't heard from them for a while. Is my money okay? Am I booked in? Is this all going to happen? And I think that's when the panic sets in
Yeah.
and the midnight phone calls come. But quite often, a really good supplier is really busy throughout the year because they're in high demand. So there's another couple and their wedding being focused on, and maybe the phone can't be answered straight away, but not to panic, and we'll be back in touch in 24 hours when we've got a moment, and just to trust your suppliers. We do it every week after week throughout the years.
We know what we're doing. Yeah, that's really important to trust. So that all comes back to meeting people in person and face to face as much as possible, reading reviews and recommendations, and if you've got that trust, you're just gonna leave it in their hands as much as you need to. But like you said, it is remembering that you're not the only couple getting married, and the more experienced and the more professional and high quality a service a supplier that's not a thing provides, that's a better word, they are going to be in demand, so they're not going to be able to answer. I'd be worried if you had a supplier that picked up the phone every time you phoned and answered an email 2 minutes afterwards. They're sat around twiddling their thumbs, they haven't got anything else to do. So it's just remembering that there's lots of other weddings going on at the same time, I think.
I always think it's a great idea to choose your suppliers in August, because if they don't answer you in the height of wedding season, they're busy for a good reason.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, that's a fair point. But also, I think little things like if a supplier asks for information from you, find out and provide it as soon as possible. And if they give you things to read or to look through, make sure you do. We don't do it to add to your workload or to your stress. We do it to help. So all the documents that I send out in my welcome pack, they're to help you. And especially, read the small print and know what, the package includes and doesn't include. Know when you need to pay by. All those little things just make our life easier, because when we are busy, we don't have time to chase up for outstanding money or check that you want to go for this package and not that package. Just make sure it's all agreed as soon as possible, and then you can relax.
It's best, the sooner you can iron out all those details, the better, because once a supplier is in wedding season, there are hardly enough hours in the day.
Absolutely.
And it's, I can do 15-hour days back to back, sometimes 3-4 weeks in a row without a day off. And so admin does take a bit of a back seat, but the cakes are the most important. They're like little divas, and we all have to make sure they're all right, and the focus is on the cakes. And I know that each couple would want me to be fully focused on their wedding cake and not be answering the constant phone calls. So my phone is switched off. So it's a very zen atmosphere.
It is very zen, I've been there.
You have, haven't you? You've experienced it. The cakes are spoken to very sweetly. There are no phone calls or emails bothering the atmosphere, and every couple gets that for their cake. So the process of all ironing out all the little details are done in advance, so that then on the day a cake is fully the centre of attention and isn't just being done along with a whole load of jobs that could wait.
It's not like number 4 on the to-do list. It's the be all and end all for that period.
So if you've got a year and a half to plan your wedding, use a year and a half to plan your wedding. Don't think, I've got a year and a half, I'll leave it for the last 3 months, because the chances are you're not going to get the service that you deserve. Because if you're trying to plan a wedding for August and you start in June, the communication is going to be a lot less than it could be.
That's a really good point, absolutely. So I think that's quite a good list of advice, really. It's just remember, you're not the only one getting married. Be nice and organised, good clear communication, and that's about expectations as well, managing expectations, because I think from what I've heard, when things haven't gone right, a lot of it is because of communication, and suppliers themselves haven't always managed expectations, and especially with something like something creative. You know, on my website, I love sort of, you know, photos taken in the golden hour, and it's all backlit and it's all beautiful and magical. But we live in England. It's not going to be like that every wedding day. So I deliberately have, you know, images from all different types of weather scenarios and settings. One, because it shows that I can deal with them and I know what I'm doing. But two, it lets people know that not to expect, you know, even in August it could rain, or, you know, so it's just making sure people are clear about what they're going to get and what variables are about that could impact the end product, really. If somebody was disappointed with my work and, you know, I said, oh yeah, well that's quite, you know, that's a difficult shot to get and I didn't have a lot of time, and, you know, it was, you know, it was a bit rushed, so sorry, you don't get the shot that you really wanted. That's my error, because I haven't been clear at the start as to how much time is needed. So I'd much rather, and I do say to couples, you know, they might say, oh, I really want a certain shot in the evening. I'm like, that's fine, but that's not an easy shot to get. You know, that's going to take a good 20 minutes to get or change my equipment, get people out to be part of it. You know, it depends where the sun's going to be. And usually they say, oh, that's fine. You know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And it's always worked. But it's better to manage those expectations at the start rather than make excuses at the end if people don't get what they want. So it is all communication, really.
Yeah.
So you mentioned being really, really busy in peak season, and peak season seems to be nearly...
Well, it's stretching.
It's stretching.
Which is fantastic, because it means the likes of me don't have to resort to birthday cakes for half a year, so I'm happy. But now I try not to do any weddings in January now. I've done them in the past, but you just need a month to, especially with the tax year looming, just to get everything in
catch
line.
up and
then I start weddings in February. So last year my first wedding was the 2nd of February. This year it was the 3rd of February. And then it's pretty much, well, certainly from the end of March, solid until the end of October.
Yeah.
And then you get Christmas weddings, which is always another peak. But yes, you can get away with maybe January and November being wedding free, but every other month is packed.
Yeah, I found November was my quietest month last year, actually. Yeah. And then I had the Christmas weddings and stuff, which is nice to do, actually. Yeah. And they do seem quite popular now, actually. So what do you do when you're not busy and you're not doing your tax return? Do you still bake? Because I know me, if I've got a weekend off, or if I'm going somewhere, I'll still take my camera, because I can disassociate it from, well, I love what I do anyway, but I can go and do a landscape or go to the races and take photos. It doesn't feel like I'm doing my job at all. It's not a busman's holiday for me. Is that the same for you? Do you still bake? Or?
I mean, I still need to feed people. That's my purpose in life. So the children get lots of cake, neighbours get lots of cake, you get lots of cake.
I do. Les and I've moved away, which is a little bit selfish.
I brought some today.
You did bring some today.
No, it's part of me, baking. I can't go for too long without it. And sometimes I may need to step away from actual cake and just have a little break and do flapjacks instead. But there's always something sugary and pretty involved. So it's a part of what I am.
And do you have any cake making heroes or inspiration? Or...
Oh, I do.
Yes, but we're recording, dear, and we have to be professional.
But we are going
Pretend I don't know you at all.
We're going to make it one day, you and me, to Peggy Portion's parlour, aren't we?
Yes, that's exciting.
Can't believe we haven't got there.
No. And
spring.
we look at the pictures on, in spring it'll be nice.
Yeah.
With all the flowers around the door and stuff.
Yeah. I just love her styling. It's just perfectly neat and pretty, which is a difficult combination, but she nails it. I just love her whole styling. I love the cakes just make you want to dive in. They're face planter cakes. You just got to shove your face in and then eat your way out. That's what they look like. And that's what cake's all about. Pretty and just irresistible. So yeah, she's my hero.
Oh. But it's important, I think, because everyone creative has people that they look up to. But I never feel like you copy or that you sort of really use a different design. It all comes from you, and I suppose subconsciously you've seen things that you like, and I suppose the same with my photographs. Like there's work I've seen, and it probably creeps into what I do without me saying, oh, I'm going to do that shot that they did, or I'm going to shoot the way they did. But I think some of that always sort of filters down a little bit, doesn't it?
It's actually really hard to copy someone's work exactly. I've had people, certainly at the start of my career, bring photos to me of cakes and say, I want exactly that.
Oh, okay.
And it's virtually impossible to do it exactly. And for a long time, I used to try and copy people's work and be very disappointed when it always had a different spin on it. And I used to get cross with myself thinking, why can't I do it like they're doing it? And then it took a while for me to think, my cakes always have this different spin on it. And I learned to embrace that spin, and that's my style. Yes, I can do these elements that are on another person's cake, but there's always going to be a bit of Fifi in there. It's always going to be a bit fly away and pretty and delicate, and just it starts to evolve into your own style. And I've now got people bringing my photos of my cakes to me, which is a very nice full circle. And I've carved out a style of my own. Yeah,
and that's important, I think, because you have to, and like you say, you can't copy other people. It has to come from you, and that's the same for couples planning their wedding. You can't just copy someone else's style or theme or something like that. It's just not going to be you at the end. It's not going to feel right, is it?
No.
It's interesting that people rarely come to me with. I say to people, if you've seen a photo on Pinterest and you'd like to sort of try something similar, then let me know, because I think people use it as a starting point because they don't know. We forget how little people know about photography or making cakes. They don't get what goes into it or the process. So when I'm at a wedding fair, sometimes I'm like, have you thought about your photography? And they'd be like, not really. And I'd be like, well, what sort of photography do you like? And they were like, I don't really know. And like one couple said to me, non-blurry ones, and I was like, yeah, I do that. I do non-blurry ones. Tick. But yeah, I suppose we forget how much knowledge we have, and how much responsibility we have to educate couples. Really,
just make it clear.
Yeah,
because it is a bit of a minefield. They've got so much to take on in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
Even sometimes I have inquiries and I say, for these size cakes, so 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, and I assume people know what that means a lot of the time, that's the diameter of each cake. And I had a poor girl the other day say, I don't understand what that means. I'm really sorry. Yes, no, you're right. A 4-inch diameter cake on top of a 6-inch diameter cake, and then it becomes clear to them. But I'm so used to that jargon.
We are used to that jargon. Yeah. I got James, my partner, if people don't know, to read through my brochures that I was doing. So I was printing 250 brochures. I'm like, right, I'm going to get several people to read through and proofread them, and he did, and it was fine. And then I got them printed, and I said to him, like, if you spot a spelling mistake now, don't tell me, because they're already there. He goes, no, he said, I just don't know what a moor is. And I said, a what? He goes, a moor. What's a moor? And I was like, and I looked, I said, show me. And I said, oh no, MUA, that's a makeup artist. So when I see my makeup artist friend, I'm just going to say, here's that moor coming. But it just makes you realise people don't know all the abbreviations and the terminology, and it is important to kind of educate but not overwhelm with jargon, and it's finding that balance, isn't it, between helping people make the right choices and not just bombarded them with information that's actually not necessary.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I do find myself sometimes, you know, when I'm doing a shoot, I'm like, I'm just doing this, just changing my lens, because I'm like, I don't really care, just do what you do, like, we trust you.
Yeah.
But you like to try and involve people as much as possible.
Definitely.
Wow, we've had a lovely little chat. Now, last season, I got people to give a final tip that's not related to what they do. Don't let some panic. So from your own wedding or as a guest, but I'm going to put a spin on it this season. So it can be a funny story or something you've seen that was just amazing that you've not seen before. Also something wedding related that you just thought was amazing. It could be to do with, I don't know, you turn up to do a cake and you saw some wonderful flowers, or you're a guest and you loved how, I don't know, the DJ or something that sort of stood out for you at a recent wedding.
Oh, and you didn't want to tell me this in advance so I could prepare an answer? No,
I thought it'd be better off the cuff.
Okay.
You didn't want notes, my love. Let's just remember you didn't want notes.
We do love to wing it. Do you know, the one wedding that really sticks in my mind was a couple of years ago, and it was in a bride's back garden.
Okay.
And it was a marquee that went from fence to fence. It literally filled the whole garden, and there was handmade bunting and the most mismatched bunch of chairs you've ever seen. And I walked in, I was just like, oh, this is so charming. The fact that it's cobbled together, and none of it's matching. And it just was the most beautiful wedding I've ever seen, because it was like everyone in the family had brought a chair. And
that's
that
really
whole
nice.
coming together of a group of loved ones to celebrate a couple betrothing their love. It doesn't matter about chair covers and whether everything is perfect. What matters is the people, and you all get together for an amazing day with lots of nosh, a lovely cake and beautiful photos to record it.
Yeah, cake and photos.
Forget everything matching.
That is true. Yeah, people get so stressed about the details, and that's no disrespect to the suppliers that provide those certain things, but you know, mismatched chairs, that sounds amazing.
It was so cute.
You know, because it shows that the couple knew what was the most important. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for today, Fiona.
That's all right.
Tell everyone your website address and how to get in contact if they need a cake.
My website is www.fifiscakery.com. There's a little email Fifi button on every page, so if you want to contact me, fill out the form and then I'll get an email and I'll respond, provided there isn't a cake being a diva needing my attention.
Fabulous. And as ever, you can find me on www.rosswilshirephotography.co.uk, or you can email info@rosswilshirephotography.co.uk. And you can chat to me about the podcast or my book, or if you want someone to photograph your lovely wedding. It's pretty much what I love doing all the time. So get in touch. But we'll be back very soon with another episode. Thanks again, Fee. You've been amazing. We didn't go off topic onto Harry Potter or anything. So
we'll do that now when we eat kids. Yeah,
yeah. We'll switch off and have a Harry Potter chat. Thanks again, and we'll be back very soon. Take care, guys.